Well, looky here, nothing on my bench right now. That's because the Kramer is done. Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel if you're a returning subscriber. So today, the Kramer is finished, done, kaput. No more I could do to it besides polish my grubby fingerprints off of it and ship it back to Wally in a box. But first, I have like a lot of eBay sellers I have a somewhat of a relationship with and end up getting parts and stuff cheaper than I would actually get them at my local music store. And my local music store is doing a thing with me for parts where I pay what they pay. So yeah, and they're the same parts. But anyways, got a hold of one of the sellers on eBay that I ended up buying a lot of stuff from, and ordered a case for Wally in a Box's Kramer, and I'm not going to ship it back without it being protected the right way instead of just bubble wrap and cardboard. I want this thing to be protected a little bit better than actually a lot better than that. So I placed an order, and the guy right away gave me a pretty nice discount on the case I ordered, which is a Gator case, so it's not going to be some cheap flimsy cardboard or particle board or whatever case. It's going to be a good hard case for it, and I got that coming. So when that shows up, then I will end up shipping Wally in the Box's Kramer back to him, and I know he's excited because I sent him a email about it yesterday and letting him know what's going on, and been kind of keeping between the videos and keeping in contact with him, let him know what's been going on and what I've been doing and stuff with the guitar. Kind of like a good, well, I wouldn't say customer because Wally in a Box is more of a friend, but it keeps a good relationship going when you let other people know what you're doing and how you're doing it, and fill them in on changes and stuff. Then make sure that they approve of those changes, because if you do a lot to a guitar or anything else for that matter, and the other person who owns that doesn't like it, there could be a lot of problems. But anyways, I will show the guitar and kind of demo it a little bit, and towards the maybe end of this video. But right now, I had to pick up some supplies today, so I ended up picking up a bunch of stuff. So I ended up getting another box of the glaze coat. Yep, can never have enough of this around, especially the way I've been using it. It's like going through water. And like I said, the stuff is really good. I'm getting used to using it. I've only done, this is the second guitar that I've actually coated entirely in epoxy resin, so I'm still kind of getting used to how this stuff works and the whole process of it and everything, but the outcomes are still pretty damn good. So that's something I picked up. And let's see here. Well, you can never use or never have enough acetone, so I had to pick up some of that today. Remember, acetone works really good for removing the glue off of kit guitars in case you find some glue areas by the binding or in seams and stuff like that where the veneer top is. This works really good instead of trying to sand it out, because sanding the veneer top is very thin. You try to sand out the glue and you end up sanding through the veneer. Also, I ended up picking up some more wipe-on poly. Yeah, I like doing the necks with the wipe-on poly. It seems to work out pretty good. This is easy apply, fast drying, and clear gloss. Now the way that I apply this is I don't do it the way that everybody else would do it with using like cut up t-shirts. I use paper towel. So I get the paper towel and I fold it a certain way to where the cut off ends are not where or not where the applicator part of the towel is. I use the folded ends. That way I don't get no fuzz or anything from the paper towel in the finish of what I'm applying the wipe on poly to. Also, what I picked up is a shitload of these. And I found these things here are really, really great for doing touch-ups. And I want to see if I can find more colors of these. So basically what these are they're paint markers. Okay, these are paints. They're not a Sharpie marker or a, markers that you would buy for your kids for school and shit. These are actual paint markers. And what's nice about them is they are great for doing touch-ups. And if you use one, like say if you have a red and a white and you want to mix like a pink or something, you can use 2 of these just to create that color. So that's why I'm wanting to find more of these, because these things work out really great for a quick touch-up before you put a little bit of a clear, or if you're doing the CA glue trick to make a clear on the chipped area. They work really great. And one of them that I found over here was a metallic gold. So that's kind of a nice one for doing some accents. Now, a lot of the black that you see on the Kramer guitar, some of the, like in the control cavity area or where the Floyd Rose is and stuff like that, and you see that's painted black, it was done with one of these. Very easy to use. Don't have to worry about it dripping if you use a paintbrush. So all the black that was painted on the Kramer was hand painted, not sprayed on. And again, the epoxy resin goes over this real easy. You can clear over it and everything else. These are basically satin blacks. Got satin white and satin red. The reason why I got satin is because, well, basically that's all they had for, they didn't have anything gloss, which works out fine because I'm going to clear coat it anyways, right? So yeah, so I got to find a place to put these guys. I ran out. You can kind of hear this is empty. I ran out of it, and yeah, these things are pretty old. I've had these for quite a while. I got a silver one over here someplace in this pile. There you go. But it's a calligraphy pen, and this is for drawing like lettering and stuff like that. It's silver, but still, it works out pretty good, and it's a paint pen. So this is going to hit the trash. Oh, I made it too. And I'm going to find a place to put these. And let me get over to the Kramer and kind of show a little bit of that off. Alright, so here is Wally in a Box's new, now custom Kramer guitar. So I'm going into a little bit about this thing. It is set up, tuned up, and intonated, pretty much ready to go. So here is the string retainer that came on this guitar. This is the original one. So if I take the original one and butt it up against the one that is the new one, you'll see that there's a difference in the length between the two of them. And this would have never made it, even if I moved it down, it still would have never made it over to the location where it needed to be to pull in the high E string. Now I did shift it a little bit over that way from where these screw holes were. I couldn't fill these screw holes. I would have had to refinish the whole headstock in order to fill those guys up. I did try, but it didn't look right. So I was like, well, I still have to make a truss rod cover for this thing, because the truss rod cover that I did make would not go down inside of here because of how low this is. Now I looked it up online, and it showed that the width of the lock taken off of it, if you put it between the retainer and the nut itself, it's about the distance between here and here. So that's what I went by, is what I found online, but I also saw some of them that were up higher as well. So I don't know if it was a different guitar headstock compared to this one, or a much longer string retainer than what this one is. This is an actual Floyd Rose string retainer original. So it's for Kramer and Ibanez, I believe. So this is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. So I decided to make kind of like a I wouldn't say a cover, I would say more of a protector. You're not going to be able to get an Allen key inside of here without removing this cover still. And it'll help keep debris and stuff possibly out of there as well. Now, you could still access it. You remove those 3 screws, remove the cover, and you go in a little bit on an angle. Now, this is a 5mm, not the typical 4mm that you would see on everything now. And yeah, so these pickups here are active. So leaving it plugged in like this, I'm actually draining the battery. Yeah, it's kind of a no-no. But I'm going to be testing out this thing out a little bit. So now you have 1 volume and 2 tones, 5-way selector switch. So when the switch is all the way back, obviously that's your humbucker, and this is your tone control for it. Now the tones that I have, the caps on here are 2 different caps. So if you're going to do like a lot of distortion, you know, heavy metal and stuff, the cap that I put on the humbucker, after reading a bunch of stuff on, you know, just mix and matching caps, usually the higher number is really good for high gain and high distortion, because the roll off is a lot quicker than what it would be with this. Now, these are all CTS pots. These are all 500 Ks, and they're audio tapers, not linear. I like the audio tapers because when you go down with them, you get up to a certain point on the linear ones, and say like you get to number 4 on the dial, and it just cuts completely out. At least with this, you have it tapers all the way down to 0 instead of having a cutoff. That's why I like these. So when you switch it here, you have the humbucker and the middle pickup, and now you have 2 tones. Switched in the middle, obviously you're going to have just 1 single tone. That'll be your middle pickup. Switch it here, and you're going to have just 1 single tone for both middle and neck. Switch it here, 1 tone for just the neck. I like the humbucker. Now these active system, they're supposed to mimic, kind of mimic like the EMG pickups, and to me they kind of do. The Dragonfires are pretty damn close to it. Not quite exact, but close to it. So I still have my grubby fingerprints on it. I got a brand new, an actual Floyd Rose. It fits on there fine and works. So let me unplug this. One thing is, this new plug is really tight. Let's flip this puppy over. So here's the neck pockets. There's no cracking anymore. That is all gone. Now the neck, I gave it a little bit of a 2000 grit sandpaper, so it's going to be a little bit soft and not grab, but still have a little bit of a sheen, so you can see that nice flaming that's in that maple. And of course the ugly patch that's on the side over there. So over here we have your control cavities, you have your battery box, and you have your springs for your tremolo. Now I did do, there's a cover on this, so see. So what I did do is I did put the heat shrink tubing around the springs. Doesn't need any more than 2 springs on this thing. It works out fine. And he also requested to have a block, which I did put some foam pad between the block and the stop for this thing. Just so when you go back, it goes back to home place, you're not going to hear the two metals tapping each other. And it still stays in tune because it's pulling itself back. And there's not a lot of tension on it. I don't have that much tension on it to where you really need to push down on the whammy bar in order for this thing to get the type of sound that you want. And of course, here is your battery box, energizer, and then over here, if you notice, like the CTS pots, you could kind of see the writing on them. When I did this, what I ended up doing is I like to sand the top of the pots anyways, because there is like an oil film on top of them. You could remove it with a little bit of acetone. I like to kind of sand it so it gives the solder a little bit of something to grip into when it heats up and starts to become one with the back covers. I also took a little bit of black paint and went over the back of the pots where the lettering is, and then when I sanded off the black paint, it highlighted all the lettering, so you can kind of see that there's CTS pots that are in there. 5-way selector switch, 2247 caps, live input or output, I mean, so there's this switched output. I got my battery wires running over here, going into the battery box, ground coming out, going to the switch, and then grounding to the top of the pot. These are supposed to be noiseless pickups. And of course, back here, no more cracking on the back of here like it was before. That's basically the biggest problem I had with this thing. Was there was a lot of wood damage with this thing. The wood was cracking, splitting, the finish was cracked, and didn't know if it was going to be a something that can restore. Luckily it was, and I'm very, very glad it was, because I really wanted to work on this for Wally and get it to him. Now the finish isn't exactly perfect, so there are some spots like these little dots right over inside here where the paint didn't kind of get in where the wood is. You might see that a little bit. There is a spot on here where a couple of tiny little bubbles going on the edge of the side over here. I could take a file and I can correct that right away and get rid of them, but I'm going to leave that there. But everything else seems to be pretty damn good. I did have to put a shim inside the neck to kind of tilt the neck over a little bit, because if the neck was up against this wall, the strings would not line up going down the neck the way that they line up now. So everything is pretty much the way it's supposed to be. I mean, if I can get the angle of the camera right to where you can see the strings. I drilled out some of the fret markers, popped them out, drilled them out a little bit bigger with a countersinking bit, and then filled them with glow-in-the-dark powder, and then went with the crazy glue on top of them. So it's going to take a little bit because it looks like there's new fretboard over here. It's going to take a little bit to kind of work that in. The fretboard has been oiled, and the nice thing about these glow-in-the-darks, they glow pink. If I shut off the lights in here, this will glow, but not the body. If I put a black light in here, all of it will glow, as you guys seen in other videos. The Floyd Rose 2 tremolo, everything works on it. Everything's fine. Push it down, goes right back into tune the way it's supposed to. I could have floated it, but I don't. They're a pain in the ass, especially if I have to shift this back to him. It's going to be a pain in the ass for him. And when I asked about if he wanted to block the trem or the Floyd on this thing, he said yeah, so it'll help him out too, because I hate setting up a Floyd Rose. They are such a pain in the ass to get the balancing. The action height on this thing, what did I measure it at? See if I can hold this on the side. So at the 12th fret, where am I? At the 12th fret on the low E string, we are at a 1.75. And over here, we are at a 1 millimeter. So we're 1 millimeter on the high side and 1.75 on the low side. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. This has got completely new frets on it. So all the frets are brand new. The ends of the frets are not sharp at all. So you have no problems with cutting themselves. So let's kind of hear this thing. Even though this is kind of a metal monster, yeah, I called it a metal monster. Let's hear what it sounds like, clean with a little bit of effects to it. So what I'm doing right now is I got a wax polish. I'm putting it on here. Now, you want to be careful if you ever decide to take out any of these screws for the plexiglass covers, because when you put them back on, if you tighten them too tight, you just want to snug them up. If you tighten them too tight, you could crack the plexiglass, so you don't want to do that. So right now, I'm just giving it a little bit of a polishing. And the case came, so this thing will be heading out shortly once once the weekend is over, right? Because it's the weekend. All right, Wally. Here she is. Nice and shiny. Now I just put my fingerprints on it again. You know. Now there's a little special little message right over here that's under the clear. So when Wally gets it, just a little hint. Look right over here. I'm sure you'll see it, but look right over here. All right, so let me go get that case. All right, so I got a nice big box over here. I got my stabbing tool. And let's get this thing open. Always nice to have those. And what is this? Okay, don't need that. Alright, so nice gator case, hard shell, plastic, ABS. Nice gator case, again, hard shell plastic, ABS. So you got a set of keys. So this case was inspected on 3/22 of 2001. So this is a brand new case. And I'm going to throw these inside there too, just in case it's a little humid outside when this thing starts to become a shipping product instead of a... Alright, so in the box, you will have your key. You will have your whammy bar. You'll have the inspection date. A couple of gel packs. This case is nice. I got a couple of these cases and I like them a lot. Alright, so let's get this guy inside there and see how she fits. Oh, she fits like a glove. So let's take a look at it. Alright, she fits like a glove. It's a little tight right here, but after some use, oops, get my finger out of the way. Take a picture with your thumb in the way, right? After some use, that'll break in. There is a dip over here for the strap lock. Nice channel for the neck to sit in, and there's plenty of room underneath the headstock, and this is made for angled headstocks as well. It's got the V inside of it. So yeah, now she's got a new home, and she's going back to its home. Alright, so now that I have nothing on my bench, what am I going to be doing? Well, first off, I need to do kind of a deep cleaning of this room. There's a lot of dust in here from sanding, rubbing compound kind of splattered all over the place. And yeah, so I got a little bit of work to do inside here, but I do have a couple of projects that are going to be coming, and it's up to the owners of them if they want me to work on them or not. And one of them is, well, actually both of them are going to be kind of like a redo and kind of restoration, and one will be a redo. So I'm interested in working on those. I got to set this up because I had like two of them coming in almost at the same time, but one person was first in line, so he's got priority. The Dragon inlay Chinese Les Paul guitar, I'm actually kind of happy with the way that turned out. I like those Seymour Duncan pickups. They sound good clean, and they sound better dirty. But yeah, only one little problem with that guitar that I found, and I'll show you that right now. Let me get that thing. So one of the issues that I found with this was basically just only the bridge. The bridge location should have been up forward instead of as far back as it is. And I don't know what they used to measure the scale length of this thing, or how they did it with from the nut to the 12th fret, from the 12th fret of where the bridge is supposed to be. Now, luckily, using the Wilkinson's roller bridge, you've got room for adjustment to move forward and backwards, or on an angle, or however you want. And then plus the saddles as well can move forward or backwards. So what I ended up doing is scooting the bridge all the way forward and then setting the intonation from there. That put me right in the spot where I needed to be in order for this thing to intonate properly. And actually it's pretty nice, pretty comfortable. I liked what they did with this neck. Again, I had this thing customized for myself as far as the neck profile goes, and the logo on the headstock, although they could have done a better job on the frets and a few other things. But, keeps me busy and keeps me out of trouble, right? So what do I have planned for right now, since I'm kind of like a little bit on a downtime? Well, again, like I said, the cleanup of this room. But I've also been working on the PRS. I wouldn't say it's a custom, but it's turning out to be somewhat of a custom. I've kind of used some things I've learned over the years as far as the finishing goes. And instead of talking about it, I'll show it to you. So I sanded the top back a little bit, and just to kind of level it out more and make sure that this line over here going around the edges is it's there, so it's not built up on the sides. And this arch top is an actual arch top, so that worked out perfect. I had a little piece of dust over here that I ended up removing, and I also got rid of the walls that were around everything that I masked. So one of the things that I kind of noticed is, every time I get rid of the masking around the walls, I get these little white spots. Those are bubbles. And the next pour that's going to go on this is going to correct that. It's going to get rid of those white bubbles because I don't have to do any masking. So as I've been using this epoxy resin, I've been learning a lot more about it and changing bits and pieces of how I've been using it and what I've been doing with it. So the back of this thing has been sprayed. Okay, now I don't know how well you could see this in the camera, but if you kind of notice that there's some striping going down the body. Now, this is a trick that I learned kind of working with stainless steel and aluminum. All right, not really giving it a brushed look, but giving it a, well, maybe it's a little easier to kind of show you. I sprayed the body, the sides. I've got to do a little bit of work with the binding a little bit, got a little bit of bleed on the binding, not much at all, but just enough to kind of, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a scraping on it, which, yes, you can scrape binding if there's paint on it. You can do it. It depends on how you apply the paint and how much paint you put on. You always want to do light coats. You don't want to do heavy coats. You don't want to get like so much of a buildup that you can't work with it afterwards, and the drying time is, outrageous. So I sprayed some real light coats on this. Now, it kind of filled in some of the grain, so I ended up sanding back a little bit and doing a trick that, like I said, with brushed aluminum look and stainless steel. So you get a piece of sandpaper, all right? And remember what I said about having your hand a certain way when you sand things. If you sand things like this, that's the way you want to do it. If you sand like this, you're going to have indentations from each finger kind of in your finish. Well, with this, that's kind of what I wanted. So basically what I did is take a piece of sandpaper. This is the exact one, 800 grit. And I had my fingers on like this, putting pressure and then going down evenly down the body. And I kept on doing that until I started to get kind of like a wood grain effect. And because I sprayed this thing so lightly, it didn't really fill up the wood grain like you would think it would. It did fill in the wood grain, but it didn't fill up the wood grain. So you do see the grain in the body. That's exactly what I wanted. But I wanted to have kind of a look of seeing some of it. A good example of what I did here is if you ever looked at the back of, say, an Epiphone Les Paul, and it's got the, was it the Pro top or something like that, where if you look at the back of it and you see they put a veneer on the back that looks like mahogany, and it's got stripes going down it. It's kind of what I want this to have. So when I put the epoxy resin, because this is going to get coated 100% with epoxy resin, exception of the neck, it's going to highlight all that, and that's all going to kind of pop out through it, kind of like how the top did when it was nice and glossy. Now you can see I got some red over here. I've also been working on the neck. So I've got the back of the headstock and the neck using the rub-on poly. Now I did carve out the headstock and gave it kind of like a half moon with the red, so that's going to match with the body itself. Now the tricky part of this is once I get done doing the rub-on poly on this, I still have, this is probably 3 coats right now, and I want to do at least probably maybe 6 or 10 coats on here, just to get it nice, get a nice shiny finish on there that I could sand and give it a little bit of a polishing. The top of this is going to get blacked out. I'm going to put my logo in here, kind of like the Paul Reed Smith has it, going up and down. That's what's going to happen over here. It's going to be blacked in epoxy resin. I have to glue the neck in first before I do any more of the epoxying on this body. So that's going to be the next thing. This neck is really, really tight fitting in this pocket. Fits in really, really good. I don't have to do any adjustments as far as tilt goes. They kind of did a good job at matching it. So it's 127 and 127 on the neck itself. So it's going to work out pretty good. And I know the red doesn't really match too much of anything on here, but at least with the headstock and the body, those two will go together. And I'm thinking about maybe painting some red inside of these control cavities. I'm not too sure yet. That I'm going to have to do some masking and painting in order to get, not get it all over the place. But this, I'm really happy with how this looked. It's dry. I could start doing whatever on it. It's got a little bit of a matte finish. I used a, it's not really a matte. It's more like a satin black paint. And yeah, so that's going to look pretty good. And with the top the way it is, once I put the second coat of epoxy on there, I want to try doing this without having to sand and without having to buff, and seeing what kind of a finish comes out after that. And hopefully it'll be really nice. So, and hopefully the bridge is in the location where it's supposed to be. All the hardware on this is going to be chrome. I do have the bridge pickup, but I don't have a neck pickup for it, and I have all the electronics. I got plenty of pots and everything else to work on several guitars. And yeah, so the back and the sides. Now the sides, I didn't do that like I did with the top because there's cross grain on it, and it's cross grain really doesn't want to smooth out very well. I did give it a little bit of a scuff before I painted it to smooth it out, but the wetness of the paint, even though I put very light kind of dry coats on there, it still raised the grain on the edges a little bit as well. That's not a big deal at all, because once that clear goes on, you're not even going to see any of that, and all of this, these lines and stuff, are all going to be pop out. I'm very excited. A trick that I learned with using the sandpaper. Now, if you're ever going to, like, if you're wanting to do a finishing sanding, all right, you don't want to go like this with the sandpaper. You want to go side to side like this. That way you get nice even lines, nice even sanding, and now no lines from your fingers putting pressure. I hate when I see somebody sanding like this, because it's like, yeah, if you get that in the fluorescent lights and you move that around, you're going to see waves. And that's what you see on a guitar that you purchase. It's nice and flat. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thanks for watching. Nice long video for some of you guys that like the long videos, and my crappy guitar playing. So take it easy, everybody, and catch you all later.